Good morning, aspirants. It's 3rd of November today, and I welcome you all on today's edition of What to Read in the Hindu newspaper. While going through the articles, we will not only see its relevance with regard to prelims and mains, but we'll also try interlinking it with other GS papers as well. I am here to align your newspaper reading as a part of our GS syllabus. So let's get started. The very first article that is mentioned in today's edition of paper is about ISRO launches GSAT-7R, India's heaviest communication satellite. So when we map in this article in our syllabus, it will fall under GS Paper 3, Science and Tech, Indigenization, Defense Technology, and Space Technology. The key theme that has been discussed in this particular article primarily talks about indigenous space tech and defense tech synergy, maritime domain awareness, and LMV-3 heavy lift capability. From mains perspective, we need to know about India's growing self-reliance in strategic communication system, role of ISRO in defense modernization, and Atmanirbhar Bharat, space as a new domain of national security. For prelims perspective, we need to know specifically about LMV-3 characteristics, which is India's most powerful launch vehicle, geosynchronous transfer orbit, communication satellites, and dual use technology, and also the basics of orbits in space technology, such as low Earth orbit, middle Earth orbit, and higher Earth orbit. In this manner, this particular article is to be holistically read and revised. The next important article that is there in the paper is about editorials page, and it talks about depressing pattern. Now, we have observed every year stampedes takes a toll on human life all in every corner of the country. Now, the most recent example has been observed in Srikakulam, right? So, this is relevant for GS Paper 2 Governance and GS Paper 3 Disaster Management. The key theme that has been discussed in this particular article is about pattern of recurrent crowd crush incidents, gap between NDMA guidelines and enforcement, need for licensing and real-time density control. For mains perspective, we need to know about persistent administrative and infrastructural failure in crowd management, public safety as a governance process, need for systemic reform and capacity building at local levels. For prelims perspective, we need to know about NDMA 2014 guidelines on crowd management, National Building Code provisions on public safety, and integrated command and control centers. In this manner, this particular article is to be holistically read and revised. The next important article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention is about cruising ahead. India's shipping sector needs help from the government to thrive. Now, this is relevant for GS Paper 3, Infrastructure, Economy, and Internal Security. The key theme that has been discussed in this particular article talks about strategic importance of shipping post-pandemic, revitalization of Shipping Corporation of India, post-modernization of Sagarmala projects, strategic autonomy in trade and shipping routes. For mains perspective, we need to know about maritime sector as economic and strategic leverage, lessons from post-COVID supply chain disruptions that we got, India's approach to balance privatization and national interest. For prelims, Sagarmala versus Bharatmala project, land port model, major versus non-major ports. This is how this particular article is to be read. The next important article is about a vision of model youth Gram Sabhas, relevant for GS Paper 2 Governance, Constitution, and Polity. The key theme that has been discussed in this article is about Article 243A and participatory democracy, linking civic education with Panchayati Raj, aspirational governance, and youth participation. From mains perspective, we need to know about Gram Sabhas as foundation of democratic decentralization, educational innovation to nurture civic responsibilities, youth role in Viksit Bharat mission. Also, the important relevant concepts that is to be read for prelims is about knowing about Article 243A and 73rd Amendment Act, structure of Panchayati Raj system, aspirational Bharat collaboration. This is how this particular article is to be read and revised. The next important article that is very much important from today's paper is about the pitfall of climate alarmism, relevant for GS paper 3, environment, climate change and ethics of science. The key theme that has been discussed in this article talks about overcorrection in climatic discourse, climate adaptation versus alarmism, technological philanthropy and global influence. For mains perspective, we need to know how elite narratives shape climate policy, need for balance between urgency and optimism, data reliability in emission estimations. For prelims, the very conceptual clarity that we have on certain areas is about what is global carbon project, carbon brief, land use emission data, net zero commitments. In this manner, this particular article is to be holistically read and revised. The next relevant article is about are social media platforms dying a slow death? Relevant for GS paper 3, science and tech, ICT, internet ethics and regulations. The key theme that has been discussed here about platform degradation and monopolistic control, algorithm manipulation and user exploitation, role of regulation and user autonomy. For mains perspective, we need to know about need for digital ethics, competition policy and user right, implication for freedom, democracy and innovation. For prelims perspective, we need to know the concept of enshittification given by 𝗵𝗍𝗶𝗆, antitrust and digital regulation, network effect in tech ecosystem. This is how this particular article is to be read and revised. The last important article and is relevant to read in today's paper is about Ramsar sites. Experts join hand for Ramsar site tags for wetland in Assam sanctuary. So every year one or the other question from Ramsar has been very populist in nature. So it is relevant for GS paper 3, environment, biodiversity and conservation. The key theme that has been discussed over here is about community-led conservation in 𝗨𝗏𝗄𝗏 sanctuary, Ramsar site designation and wetland importance, how many Ramsar sites so far has been declared in India and which country has the highest Ramsar site, what are the criteria for declaring a wetland or water body as Ramsar site, ecological corridors in Kaziranga orang landscape. Mains perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of importance of wetland in biodiversity and flood control, role of citizen science and local collaboration, integrating Ramsar Convention into local conservations, and the concepts related to it. We need to know about what is Ramsar Conventions, what is Montreux record, how many Ramsar sites so far has been put under Montreux record, the bird species that has been talked in this particular article. So this is all from my end for today's Hindu paper. Till we meet for the next time, take care and goodbye.